Martell and Stormi, what she discovered shocked not only her, but everyone watching. It wasn't just what happened, it was how long it had been happening without her realizing it. The signs had always been there, and the energy had felt off, but like many people trying to heal, Melody chose peace over suspicion until the truth forced her to face it. When she finally spoke, everything changed because this wasn't just gossip anymore. It was truth, and it marked the moment she stopped protecting others and finally chose herself. For a long time, Melody had been seen as the strong one, the woman holding everything together even when her world was falling apart. People watched her heartbreak in real time as her marriage ended and her life shifted. Yet she still managed to rebuild herself piece by piece. Even through co-parenting challenges, she stayed focused, surrounding herself with positivity and putting her children and goals first, making it clear she wasn't holding on to anger, but simply wanted peace. Still, being strong doesn't mean you don't feel pain, and it doesn't mean betrayal doesn't hurt. After her marriage ended, Melody promised herself she wouldn't stay stuck in the past, focusing instead on her growth, her business, and creating a peaceful life. And for a while, it truly looked like she had moved on. She was smiling again, glowing, and becoming a stronger version of herself. Then, Stormi entered her life, appearing supportive and genuine, and from the outside, their connection looked like a real friendship as they spent time together and worked in the same spaces. However, behind the scenes, something didn't feel right. It started with small moments, conversations that felt off, and energy that shifted without explanation. But Melody chose not to overthink it because she didn't want past pain to make her suspicious of everyone around her. Over time, though, things became harder to ignore as Martell began showing up more frequently wherever Stormi was. At first, it seemed like coincidence, but eventually, it felt like too much, and their interactions started to look different. Not just friendly, but something more. People began to notice, with fans picking up on subtle details and questioning what they were seeing. Yet Melody remained silent because she didn't want to accuse anyone without proof. Then, everything changed in a quiet, unexpected moment when she came across information she wasn't even searching for, something that connected Martell and Stormi in a way that couldn't be explained. In that instant, all the confusion made sense, and the truth hit harder than anything she had faced before, because this wasn't just betrayal from a partner, it was betrayal from someone she had allowed into her life, someone who knew her pain and still chose to hurt her. When Melody confronted Martell, his response was predictable, denial and excuses, but she could see through it because she had been there before. What hurt the most, though, was her interaction with Stormi, where she had hoped for honesty and accountability, but instead found distance and avoidance. And in that moment, she realized she was dealing with people who were comfortable hiding the truth. That realization changed everything, and she stopped asking questions, stopped looking for explanations, and stopped giving chances. Because sometimes closure doesn't come from answers, but from acceptance. What followed was silence, but not weakness. This was a woman stepping back to protect her peace and process her pain. She pulled away from the noise and focused on herself, her children, and her well-being. And when she finally spoke, she did so with clarity and strength, without needing to create chaos because the truth spoke for itself. Fans were shocked, especially by who was involved, and reactions spread quickly as people expressed anger, disappointment, and disbelief. For Melody, this wasn't just about the situation, it was about what it represented, a broken trust that made her reflect on who she allows into her life and who truly deserves her energy. Despite the pain, she didn't let it break her. Instead, she grew from it, choosing peace, self-respect, and purpose over anything that brought confusion or disrespect. This time, she didn't just walk away, she leveled up. In the end, this wasn't just about betrayal, but about boundaries and understanding when to let go, recognizing that not everyone deserves a place in your life, no matter how close they once seemed. Melody didn't just expose a situation, she revealed a pattern, and more importantly, she showed that true power comes from how you rise after pain. So while the situation shocked everyone, the real story is how she handled it with strength, grace, and a renewed sense of self-worth, proving that sometimes betrayal isn't the end of your story, but the beginning of a new one where you finally choose yourself. And even after everything came to light, the story didn't just end there. It evolved, because moments like this don't simply disappear. They leave behind questions, reflections, and lessons that take time to fully understand. For Melody, this wasn't just about moving on from two people who had crossed a line. It was about redefining what she would and would not accept in her life going forward. The experience forced her to look deeper, not only at others, but at herself, her boundaries, and the kind of energy she allows around her. It became less about the betrayal itself and more about the clarity it brought. She no longer felt the need to explain herself, defend her feelings, or convince anyone of her truth. That chapter was closed, not because everything was resolved perfectly, but because she chose to stop giving it power. Meanwhile, the situation continued to stir conversations among fans and observers. People began revisiting past moments, analyzing interactions, and connecting dots they may have missed before. What once seemed harmless now carried a different meaning, and the narrative shifted in a way that couldn't be undone. The spotlight wasn't just on what happened, but on how it happened and why. And in situations like this, silence from those involved often speaks just as loudly as words. The lack of clear accountability only added to speculation, leaving people to form their own conclusions. But while the outside world stayed focused on the drama, Melody moved differently. She didn't feed into the chaos or allow herself to be pulled into endless back and forth. Instead, she stayed grounded, focusing on her growth, her peace, and the life she continues to build. That's what made her response stand out. She didn't react emotionally in public, she responded with intention. She understood that not every battle needs to be fought out loud, and not every truth needs to be proven to those who are committed to misunderstanding it. In many ways, this situation became a turning point, not just in how others saw her, but in how she carried herself moving forward. There was a noticeable shift, a stronger sense of confidence and emotional distance from anything that didn't align with her values. She became even more protective of her space, more selective about who she lets in, and more intentional about the relationships she invests in. Because once trust is broken on that level, it changes how you see everything. And while some people expected a dramatic fallout or a public kitchen, what they got instead was something much more powerful, a quiet but firm decision to walk away and not look back. That kind of response doesn't always make the loudest headlines, but it leaves the strongest impact. It shows growth, self-control, and a deep understanding of self-worth. At the end of the day, situations like this reveal more than